Hi all, it's Tom from TNG Productions, and today we'll be delving into the competing factions in the wonderfully whimsical world of Moonstone. If you're less inclined to fight with brute force and a sneaky approach to combat and large piles of energy is up your alley, then the Dominion is definitely for you. Unlike the Commonwealth, the Dominion relies a lot more on synergy, especially within the two main races. This means that despite the fact that goblins and faeries can be used together, they are usually less efficient together than gnomes and humans, for example. They also generally carry a better evade stat than their Commonwealth counterparts and generate more energy, but are usually a little flimsier, especially on wounds. When it comes to fighting in an underhanded fashion, the goblins are the masters. If a more sneaky and evasive game plan is what intrigues you, then the faeries are the way to go. In a somewhat inverse manner to the humans, the goblins are generally pathetic in melee, have bad stats, and often want to avoid fair fights. What they do excel at is starting unfair fights. They're great at helping each other out with numerous active and arcane abilities, which leads to goblins being able to pull off some crazy stunts, but only if they spend their time setting it up. To complement this playstyle, goblins are usually furnished with a good evade stat, a medium to low health stat, and a good amount of energy. So unlike the Commonwealth, the goblins will occasionally be able to avoid opponents' arcane abilities such as ranged attacks and control skills. With a host of arcane abilities and a large deposit of energy, they are also good at avoiding bad combats by debilitating their opponents at range and reaction stepping out of trouble. Once they are in the thick of combat, however, they will often fall very quickly with their low wound count, so do take care. Much like the humans, the best way to start with the goblins is their starter set or their respective troop box. Goblin City provides Beaky Bobby, who's a fantastic healer who can occasionally deal large amounts of damage up close. You get Vicious Sid and Doug the Flatulent, who can get stuck into combat too. Sid can bully models with low damage potential, relying on his plate armor to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Doug can attack models while remaining outside of their melee range with his excellent 3-inch lance. After this box, Mushrooms and Mayhem can make an excellent second purchase, giving you more support models to be there for your beaters. If goblins are somewhat inverse to humans, then the faeries could be seen as inverse gnomes. Unlike the gnomes, the faeries are loaded with energy, fragile and fast. Similar though, they are somewhat tough to kill. This toughness, however, stems from avoiding combat and damage rather than being able to tank it head on. Given that all faeries have between 5 and 6 wounds, being able to avoid damage is really vital. This is achieved through a phenomenal evade stat of -2 across the board, boatloads of energy to reaction step outside of danger, and some amazing defensive signature skills. As good as they are on signatures, it does not translate into amazing melee skills in general. Much like the gnomes, most faeries are saddled with a 1-inch melee, and to make matters worse, most faeries have weakling or feeble, which severely limits their output in melee. If faeries do need to hurt the opponent, they can rely on a lot of magical damage instead, usually in the form of short-range arcane abilities such as Fizzle Pop. A final feature of the faeries is further benefits to bluffing. A few of them possess abilities which buff themselves, usually with energy, if they or another nearby faerie successfully bluffs. All of this in combination can lead to a very hard but rewarding race to play. Learning when and where to bluff, as well as when to keep energy back for reactions, can mean the difference between a dead faerie and victory. If this sort of gaming and painting challenge intrigues you, where's the best place to start? Whilst healing is important for all troops, as you might well be able to tell with all the prior troop boxes and healers, it's even more so for faeries due to their low health and high energy. Much like the other races then, it's probably a good idea to start with a box with a healer. And with this in mind, the best box to start with is the Enclave, with possibly one of the best healers in the game, Freya. It also features Tito, a hard to target faerie who's great at holding onto moonstones, and the Fencer, who boasts the highest base melee stat in the game. Beyond this, Blood Magic can make a great second box for those wishing to focus on the faeries. It brings Diana, the Queen of the Fae herself, who brings even more to the faeries with a high magic damage output and faerie support skills. So that'll conclude this video and give you a brief overview of this faction. Please check out the other videos in this series to see what everybody else does, and let us know in the comments who you're most excited to play as. Be sure to check out the links in the description for more information on Moonstone, and I will see you in the next one.